Hey everybody, so today we'll be going over how to use Illustrator to create patterns. So Illustrator is a vector-based design software as opposed to Photoshop, which is a raster-based. Basically what this means is that all the files within Illustrator can be scalable without losing any quality, which is a great thing. So it's often used for things like logos or large print material that need to be able to be scaled without losing any resolution. So yeah, today we're going to be using it to generate some patterns. There's a lot of interesting and fun tools for doing that sort of thing. But to begin, let's get our files set up. So the first thing we're going to do is click New File. And we are going to make sure that we have a file of 5 inches by 5 inches. And we're going to make sure it is on 150 ppi. And then here we can make multiple designs within one file. So that's going to be our artboards. So we want to have 20 artboards set up. And then we can just hit create. So here we can see it's almost like for Photoshop we have like all of our different Photoshop files, but just in one place, which is super convenient. Again, we have all our tools over here, just like in Photoshop. And then we have our properties here. So that's when we have something that we have selected, we can edit it over here. And then all of our layers will go over here. So to begin, what I'll do is just, for an example, make one pattern. So to do that, I'm just going to use the star tool. So if we right click on it, we can see a bunch of other tools. I'm just going to use the star tool. I'm going to click here and I'm going to control how many points I have. Let's say 20. You can also control your radiuses. I'm just going to leave it as it is and we can control it later. So here we have a pretty fun star. And we can control the fill and the stroke of the star over here. So stroke means the line and fill means the inside. So if I go those around, you can see it's sort of a little bit, you can see kind of what this does. And if you want to change the actual color, we need to keep these in black and white, but if we do need to change the color, we can go here and control that. So we're going to keep this black and white, but I want my fill to be black for my design. And then we can start thinking about size. So when I click on it, it automatically has this box on it that lets me adjust it. If I just move it around, it's going to change the scaling of it. So if I want to keep it consistent, I'll just do it while holding down Shift, and then it keeps it the correct scale. And then if I want to quickly duplicate this to create, let's say, a pattern, what I can do is just hold down Option and then drag. So if I do that, I can quickly kind of generate a pattern. And I have sort of this star-shaped dice sort of pattern. That could be one of them. I could also maybe play around with scale. So maybe I'll make one that's really big, and then I'll have another one here that's a little bit smaller. And here it's a little bit smaller. Another one here, it's a little smaller. You sort of get the idea. And so that's just one shape, and I've sort of made all these patterns, right? Another way to quickly generate a pattern is to select our object, go to Object, and we have Pattern, or we have Repeat. I'm going to try Repeat Radial. This is pretty fun. It automatically generates my shape into a radius, and there's different sort of ways that I can manipulate this. I'm going to just size it down so it all fits within my artboard. If I change this, it's going to change the size of the circle that these objects are rotated around. If I change this, it's how many instances there are. You can kind of see that start to go up and down. If I change this, it becomes not a full circle, which is pretty interesting. So that's a great one. Another thing I could do is take my shape, go back to Object, Repeat, and I could do a grid. And again, we have these different options here where we can choose how many repetitions we have. We can choose the spacing between our stars. We can really quickly start to generate some sort of pattern or form. So we can do that with our star. We can do that with, say, like a circle, or even multiple shapes. Let me try doing a circle and a square. If you don't want this line here, you can go to our stroke and hit this none option. So then we just have the shapes. So now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go to Repeat and Radial. This is a pretty interesting one. Again, I have that stroke on just my circle, so it kind of cuts in at certain points. Now, if we want to layer this, we can actually apply a grid to this. So let's try that. But if we already have a grid, we need to basically expand this into a shape. Once you do this, you won't be able to edit it or change it, so be careful of that. But I'll hit expand and hit OK. Then we see all these kind of turn into shapes. And then what we can do is go into Object, Repeat, so let's do Grid. So now we have our complex shape. But it is repeated on a grid. Which is pretty fun. So there's a lot of different ways to edit objects and things like that, and a lot of different ways to repeat it. And you can also just kind of manually put different objects and things in and sort of create your own patterns that way too. But we want to keep them sort of geometric. We want to keep them not too asymmetrical because if we're making a pattern, we want them to sort of be all of these things. The other thing you can do is paint. To increase our brush size, we can go to Properties and choose different brushes. And we'll want to make sure that our stroke is black so that we can see it. And you can begin to kind of create your own lines. When you click on it, you can change the brush after the fact too, which is a really nice thing about Illustrator. You can try different brushes and all sorts of things. Which is great. You can also take your brushes and apply a pattern. So pattern kind of lets you generate different patterns within, but it's a little bit more complex, so you can experiment with that, or you can kind of take the more simple repeat. which is great too. So here I've sort of created a quick repetition line pattern. The other thing you can do is edit a shape. So let's say I have this rectangle. I'm going to swap it to black. And I can use my direct selection tool to edit the shape. These little circles, I can make my corners round if I wanted to. I could also delete anchor points. So the anchor points are sort of what make the shape what it is. So I can delete them, or I can manipulate them by dragging them around, which is fun too. So I just click on the anchor point and I can drag it. Which is awesome. And so maybe I want to generate like a geometric composition where I make a bunch of shapes sort of interlock together. I could do that too, but just by manually kind of coming in here and adjusting my anchor points. And you can start to see how it'd be possible to generate really complex patterns pretty quickly within Illustrator. So if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Feel free to explore. There's lots of different things that you can do within the software. Feel free to like hover over here and look at the tool and even look up what it does. The really helpful thing in the Adobe software is if you hover over the tool, oftentimes it will show you a demo of what's happening.